Hello YouTube. An impromptu video here. I was recently asked for a video on how to take off just the top cover on the Pentax cameras. So I'm going to do that. This one's already been apart, so it's going to come apart pretty easy. And this will also be considered typical. This is a Spotmatic. The K1000s are a little different. The older S1s, H1Bs, whatever they are a little bit different also. But this is a general idea. It's not terribly complicated. So let's get right into it. Oh, I was also asked about spanners. This is the spanner that I use. I got it on eBay. It was like, I don't know, 14 bucks or something like that. It has the pointy ends. Also has has cheap covers. Has the bladed ends, and also some other parts that go with it. If you don't have a spanner, I've also used, with some success, dividers. These are machinist dividers. They're solid steel. They belong to my grandfather. They're pointy. They're adjustable. And if you're careful, and if the screws or the spanner nuts aren't terribly tight, this has been very productive. I've also used this. This is an E-clip retainer removing tool. If you can see that, it has interchangeable bits that go in the end, and they would go the same way. Anything else works in nuts and bolts and screws like that that have the dimples. These are a little bulkier, and they don't necessarily have the super fine adjustment on them. Although these are nice because they're screw operated. But these will work if you have tips that are small enough. But anyhow, let's get into it. So we're going to start with the easy stuff. I'm going to open the back of the camera. I'm going to take kind of a heavy small screwdriver, stick it in the fork on the spool side of the wind-up, and these knobs just unscrew counterclockwise like that. And then you can take whatever kind of spanner tool you do have and go after this nut here. There's two dimples there. This is also a right-handed thread. So we're just going to turn that off, being gentle because I don't want to scratch it all up. Just a few turns, and then this whole thing comes off. You've got the thing in the middle that you just unscrewed, the knob, which I'm sure has a name, but I don't know it. Set that aside. And we've got a brass or copper wavy washer, and we've got a thin wafer, probably aluminum. Take that off. I want to keep these things in order because they only go together one way. And while you're doing this, once you get all the stuff taken off, it's a good time to clean it. Going to the other side, this is a little unusual. This is the first one of these I've seen that has a screw in the end. Generally the screws are on top, usually right here, but this one is a little bit different. It has a screw in this side, so we're going to take that out. Where's my other screwdriver? Being careful not to over torque it, because you don't want to scratch up the screw or the body. The screws are chrome. Set that aside, and then we're going to take the shutter speed control. We're going to turn it to B, bulb. That's what the book says. I don't really know why, but that's what the book says, so that's what I do now. And I'm going to adjust. I know my hands are in the way here. I'm going to adjust my spanner tool to go into those two little divots in the top of the shutter speed control. And this, I'm going to gently turn that out. And this is a right-hand thread, so you'll be turning it counterclockwise to get it out. I hope that's visible. Being gentle. Oop, I scratched it. Oh well. And there's a spring back there, so hold the top down like that as you unscrew. Once you get it loose, I'm using one fork on this tool. Once it's loose, it generally comes right off. And you see the spring right there? That whole assembly will come off as a unit. Be aware there are tabs and slots that all have to go back together. It's not a big deal if you get it all taken apart and confused. It only goes back together really the one way. And you'll see, I'll just show you here, there's a slot in the bottom. This is your ISO indicator. There's a tab on that that goes into that slot. And this is your speed, shutter speed ring, and there's your screw. And of course, you'll put that there. You'll put your shutter speed disc does not have a tab on it, but you know that you took it off in the bulb position, so you just put it back on that way, and then you'll squeeze it down, and you'll put the screw back in. And it's a little tweaky because this thing has to be able to. You have to be able to pull this collar up and turn it to get the ISO to change. I want to make sure I'm on camera here. Yep. So it's a little tricky to get that so that it works properly, but it's not terrible. So we've got that off. Then we're going to go after this cap, and this has 3 weenie screws. There's the screwdriver, and for comparison, there is a pencil point. Okay, those screws are smaller than a pencil point. And what you want to do is find the screws and loosen them. Do not remove them, because they are monstrous to get back in. That's the little turn. Doesn't take a whole lot. And then very gently pick it up, off, set it aside. And then you're down to your frame counter. This one is different than every other Pentax I've ever taken apart. It has a spring in here. So, which most of them don't. This is the first one like this I've seen. This screw comes out. Now this screw is different in that it is counter. It is a left-handed thread. So to unscrew it, you're going to turn it clockwise. And just like that. And you're going to take that screw and set it aside. Now I'm going to try and take this off as a whole thing here. If this was any other Pentax, I would take this thing apart piece by piece. But, oh shoot, I have to take it apart. There's a nut down in there. Okay, well, here we go. You're going to get to see what this is going to be like. There's your disc, and there is the spring. This is the center lug just slides down over the shaft. So I have to take Well, there's no good way to do it. Let's take the spring out. Okay, my camera crapped out again, so I lost the last couple minutes. Last thing you saw was me taking the spring out. That's what it looks like. And long story short, once you get the spring out, you're going to see the brass center lug that goes in the spring there. This is just set here because I'd already done it. You're going to wiggle that up off the shaft. The shaft is flat on two sides, so the brass hub is accordingly flat on two sides, and it just goes on there. I'm not aware that it makes any real difference which way it goes on. I put it back together not knowing, and it worked fine. There is an up and a down though. Keep up and down straight. Then underneath that is a little tin plate that comes up. It's not screwed down. You set that aside. Then you have this nut, which I've already removed. And to do that, I used, again, where is it? My do-it-yourself spanner tool. It's slotted. I unscrewed it. This one is right-hand thread, so it unscrewed clockwise. Some of these are different. Some of these are left-handed thread and unscrew clockwise. I don't know what Pentax was thinking, but not all are the same. So you get that stuff off. The spring cup comes off. It too is pressed onto or slid onto a two-sided shaft. There is an up and a down. Keep that straight. And then you come to a part that's a little tricky but not hard. Three screws on your winder. This is a separate piece. This is a spring clip that you have to rotate out of and back into position to get the arm back on. I'll show you. So we'll just take these three screws out. And again, like everything else, they're tiny. Oops. And it's helpful if you have a clear working space, which I don't. I've got stuff all over the place because I got like 3 camera projects going on right now. And hey, one's missing. Alright, well, it appears I didn't put all 3 back when I reassembled this. Whatever. So in any event, take out 3 screws, and in a clockwise direction you want to nudge this thing around until it slips out from under the little wings that are here. This is not directional. There's an up and a down, but it doesn't matter how you set it back in. And then I think they call it a charging handle. Your wind handle comes off. You have a little nylon disc that goes on this way. There's an open spot here that corresponds to protrusions here. And having done that, the top will wiggle off like so. And there you have it. Not terribly hard, and like I said, this is typical, but they're all the models have their own little tweaks and thingies, and but they're all essentially the same. If you can do this, if you're watching this one, you can do any of them, because it's just a matter of undoing things in order and keeping track of the parts. So that's pretty much it. I hope this was helpful. I don't think of anything else that's relevant. You want good quality screwdrivers. You're going to want a loop. I have a couple of these things. I have that, and I have one of these things, glasses. Because the further you get into these things, the harder it is to see. And that's pretty much it. So, good luck, and until